Matt Cameron leaves Pearl Jam after 27 years in the band. Black Sabbath go back to the beginning with their final show in Birmingham, England. Oasis return to the stage for their first reunion shows in Cardiff, Wales. And Smashing Pumpkins might be pricing out longtime fans with the new expanded deluxe edition of their album Machina. We're going to break it all down on this edition of the Rock News Roundup Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rock News Roundup Podcast, your destination for the latest in rock music news, reviews, and discussion right here on the Nick Chino Music YouTube channel. I'm your host, Nick Chino. We got the mics on, we got the devil horns up, and we're ready to talk about the latest in rock music news. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'd really appreciate it if you toss me a thumbs up and a like. I'd really appreciate that. Make sure to share this online with your friends and fellow rock fans, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already so you don't miss out on future videos. And you can also listen to this podcast as an audio-only edition on your favorite podcasting app of choice, whether that's Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out the Rock News Roundup, and make sure to follow me on social media across platforms as well at Nick Chino Music. And if you are watching this on YouTube, I did post a couple of videos over the last couple of days you might want to check out. Of course, Oasis returned to the live stage this past Friday and Saturday for two shows at Principality Stadium in Cardiff, Wales. So on Friday night, on the heels of that big return, their big reunion, their first show back, I did a live stream where I did a little reaction watch and talked about the set list. I'm about talking a little bit about it coming up on the show today as well. But if you want to check out that live stream, that's up there on the channel right now. I also did a breakdown of the new 30th anniversary edition of What's the Story Morning Glory that the band just announced. Is it worth picking up the umpteenth copy of Morning Glory for this new 30th deluxe edition? Did a video on that as well. And then just today or yesterday, actually, I posted a new video, my top 8 best Superman songs ever in honor of the new movie, the new Superman movie that's coming out this weekend, courtesy of director James Gunn. I'm a big movie fan as well as a music fan, and I'm really looking forward to Superman. I already got my tickets for that on Thursday night, so you can check out that video as well. But coming up on today's edition of the podcast, going to be talking about my tracks of the week. We're going to talk about how Smashing Pumpkins are pricing out their fans, their hardcore fans, out of this latest new deluxe edition of their album Machina that they just announced. We're also going to talk a little bit more about that Oasis reunion tour, those first two shows at Cardiff, Wales, and where we go next on the Oasis reunion tour. We're going to talk about Black Sabbath performing their final show with some blockbuster guests at Back to the Beginning in Birmingham, England. But I want to kick off the show with this news, and this is actually really, really sad news for rock fans everywhere. If you love a great drummer and you love great bands, that is Matt Cameron is going to be leaving Pearl Jam after 27 years. This news coming from Spin. Pearl Jam drummer Matt Cameron is stepping down from the band after 27 years as their drummer. This is actually really shocking news because he's been with the band for a very, very long time. And of course, Pearl Jam still very much an active and creative band out there on the road. They just released their new album Dark Matter last year. And let me just read this statement that Matt Cameron wrote. He said that after 27 fantastic years, I've taken my final steps down from the drum riser from the mighty Pearl Jam. Much love and respect to Jeff, Ed, Mike, and Stone for inviting me into the band in 1998 and for giving me the opportunity of a lifetime, one filled with friendships, artistry, challenges, and laughter. He says, I'm forever grateful to the crew and the staff and everybody the world over, the fans the world over. It's been an incredible journey. More to follow. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. And then Pearl Jam also chimed in there saying, from being one of our first musical heroes in the band's Skin Yard and the mighty Soundgarden, of course, to being to playing on our first demos in 1990. I didn't know that Matt Cameron played on Pearl Jam's first demos, so you learn something new every day. But Matt Cameron has been a singular and true powerhouse of a musician and drummer. He has propelled the last 27 years of Pearl Jam live shows and studio recordings. It was a deeply important chapter for our group, and we wish him well always. He will be deeply missed and is forever our friend in art and music. We love you, Matt. So that is coming from Spin. So it's saying here that Matt Cameron played his first show with Pearl Jam on May 7th, 1998 in Seattle. And then, of course, the first album that he played on, the first album where he was the drummer for Pearl Jam was on Binaural in 2000. And, Pearl Jam, a long history of drummers being in the band and drummers leaving. You know, you got older drummers like Dave Aberzizi and Dave Cruson, and then you have Jack Irons. But then Matt Cameron kind of steadied the lineup over the last 27 years or so, ever since binaural in in the year 2000. So he's been able to steady the drummer drama for Pearl Jam. They really had a hard time nailing down a drummer back in the 1990s. So when Soundgarden broke up for the first time back in 97, Matt Cameron kind of was able to pivot and join as a drummer of Pearl Jam. But in addition to all that, Matt Cameron is a musician in his own right. He plays guitar, he's a songwriter, he's done lots of different projects on his own outside of Soundgarden, outside of Pearl Jam. And really, Matt Cameron is one of my favorite rock drummers. I think he is one of the best drummers that we've ever seen in the world of rock music. Just some of the things that he's done, especially more on the Soundgarden stuff. I wouldn't say with Pearl Jam that his drumming has been as flashy or as unique as it was with Soundgarden. I feel like Soundgarden, he was able to really let loose and play a lot of those rhythms and a lot of those fills that he didn't really get to do with Pearl Jam, because Pearl Jam to me was, even though they're a rock band just like Soundgarden, their songwriting has been a lot more traditional. It's not really as showy when it comes to the instruments. Pearl Jam is more about the song, whereas, you know, Soundgarden, of course, also about great songs, but also the certain musicianship and the certain things that were going on in there, a lot of riffs, a lot of different time signatures that Matt Cameron was able to do. So he's always been, you know, one of my favorite rock drummers. And, you know, a lot of people are rightfully asking now, you know, why now? Why is Matt Cameron leaving Pearl Jam after 27 years? He's 62 years old. That is even harder to believe than some of these other facts, that Matt Cameron is 62 years old. And I think, you know, we could look into it cynically and say, you know, there was some falling out with the members of Pearl Jam and there was something behind the scenes with some bad blood or something like that. But I just like to think that maybe his time is done with the band. He wants to pursue other new musical opportunities. Like I said, he's already a musician in his own right. He already does his own thing. And then there's always been that talk over the last decade or so, even maybe even longer, of a new Soundgarden record. Of course, we lost Chris Cornell in 2017, but there's been a legal battle between the members of Soundgarden, the remaining members, and Chris Cornell's wife over control of lost demos and like recordings that they want to finish. So maybe this could be related to Soundgarden and them wanting to finish that music, and he wants to dive back into that project. And then I've seen lots of people talking about like, oh, you know, he's going to join Foo Fighters, because Foo Fighters, you know, recently they left Josh Freese out of the band, and there's been a lot of drama with drummers over the last little while, because we had Zach Starkey who left the Who, we had Josh Freese obviously getting let go from the Foo Fighters. We didn't really have a lot of information about that, and now we have Matt Cameron leaving Pearl Jam. So I don't think that Matt Cameron is going to join the Foo Fighters. I don't really think that is going to be happening, because I think he probably wants to slow down as opposed to speed up. And with Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, they're always going to be on the road. They're going to keep doing what they're going to be doing. So I don't think Matt Cameron's really up for that. And he did say there will be more to follow. So we'll see exactly what he's going to be doing in the future. But I hope that does include getting back to those Soundgarden recordings and working out those legal issues, and really getting back to releasing those Soundgarden recordings, because I really, really do want to hear that. But you know, Matt Cameron, like I said, one of a kind drummer, an amazing drummer. If you watch the Drumeo YouTube channel, he recently did a little bit of like a masterclass on the Drumeo channel where he was playing some of his most famous drum parts, and that was just incredible to watch. I just think he's such an incredible musician, and I've never actually listened to any of his other projects. There was solo stuff. I know he's done a lot of writing for Pearl Jam. I think "You Are" on Riot Act was one of the songs that he wrote. That's a killer track from Pearl Jam. So you know what, like, and the thing too with drummers is, as a musician, I've played with lots of different drummers over time. And with drummers, it's like, it's hard, you know, like who's Pearl Jam going to find to replace Matt Cameron in this? And the thing is with anybody, like, and that's not necessarily just with drums, but it could be with any instrument in a band. But when a person, they may be a good drummer, right? They may be technically very good. Like they may be able to do everything you want them to do on the drums, but then sometimes maybe just the feel isn't right. You know, like certain songs need a certain feel, and that may not come naturally to that specific drummer. And I actually think that's kind of what happened maybe with Foo Fighters, as technically awesome and amazing as Josh Freese is as a drummer. Like, don't get me wrong, Josh Freese is one of the best drummers in the world, but listening to him performing with some of the Foo Fighters songs that they were doing on their tour not too long ago, just the stuff that I saw online, like it felt like he didn't quite have the same feel. And obviously, it's a tall order to replace Taylor Hawkins on drums when he was with the Foo Fighters for decades, and very specific. And Dave Grohl, obviously, very specific about what he wants to hear on the drums. But it just sometimes it just didn't feel right. And so it's not just as simple as saying, well, Pearl Jam should hire Josh Freese, or the Foo Fighters should hire Matt Cameron, because they're both free now and they're both doing their own thing. They're back to playing with other bands. So I don't really think it's as simple as just swapping out drummers, and I don't always think it's as simple as just saying, well, this person's a great player, just get them in and everything will be fantastic. I think there is a certain thing that needs to happen, a certain chemistry that needs to happen with drummers and bands, and that also works for other parts in a band, whether that be guitar or bass or vocals or whatever you're playing. But really, drums make up such a huge part of a band and of their sound, and really does lay the foundation for bands to do what they do. So it's not always just simple as swapping them in and out. But either way, Matt Cameron has left Pearl Jam after 27 years, and we thank him for his service, because his drumming was especially awesome on the last record, like Dark Matter. I felt like they let him out of the cage a little bit with his drumming on that, especially on the title track, Dark Matter. His drums on that record are just really like full and propulsive and really punchy, and that's not always something that we've gotten with his drums with Pearl Jam. So at least we got that really great record with Dark Matter with Matt Cameron on the drums. So yeah, really sad to hear that Matt Cameron is leaving Pearl Jam after 27 years. We wish him all the best in his other endeavors. And let me know in the comments below what you think. What do you think of Matt Cameron leaving Pearl Jam? Who do you think would be a suitable replacement for Matt Cameron in Pearl Jam? Let me know in the comments below. But moving on to the next story on this edition of the Rock News Roundup podcast, this coming courtesy of Loudwire. Black Sabbath go out with a bang for their final shows at the Back to the Beginning concert that they held at Villa Park in their hometown of Birmingham, England, this past weekend. Talk about a big weekend for British rock fans. They had Oasis getting back together in Cardiff on Friday and Saturday night, and then back to the beginning, the Black Sabbath final show with a roster of incredible blockbuster guests on this thing. Absolutely incredible. That was a crazy weekend for British rock fans all across the country. So, yeah, Black Sabbath's classic lineup: Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward got back together for the Back to the Beginning concert. And I'll kind of get into some of the highlights of that show in just a couple of seconds. But obviously, this was a huge thing for Black Sabbath fans, for metal fans, and like, talk about a lineup for this thing as well. Like, they really did not leave anybody out when it came to this event. Like that, Mastodon, Anthrax, Hailstorm, Lamb of God, Gojira, Slayer, Rival Sons, Alice in Chains, Sammy Hagar, Steven Tyler, Tool, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica going on stage before Black Sabbath. So it was, the band Black Sabbath. Ozzy does solo set, and the event was actually broadcast live online on video on demand. So you could actually purchase this concert and watch it online, which was not the same case with Oasis and their reunion shows, because a lot of us were just like looking for live streams on YouTube or TikTok or wherever we could find it. But overall, this looked like a great day of celebration of Black Sabbath, of British metal, and of course their influence on the world of rock music, which is like immeasurable. Black Sabbath is one of those names, kind of like the Big Four. When I think about the Big Four of rock in the late 60s into the early 70s, you had, of course, Led Zeppelin, you had Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple. Like, those four bands I really think brought on the age of hard rock and the age of metal in the late 60s and the early 70s. And Black Sabbath are not necessarily like my go-to band. They're not one of the bands that I listen to the most, but I do love Black Sabbath. I do have a lot of respect and love for that band. And really, I think this was a great way to go out, even though this is the second time they've done a final show. The other one was the beginning of the end that they did in 2017, but original drummer Bill Ward was not part of that reunion. So this really was like the send off for Black Sabbath and their legacy in rock music. And so again, I didn't buy the stream myself, but a lot of clips were posted on YouTube over the weekend, so I had a chance to catch up on quite a few of the performances for this the Back to the Beginning concert. And so just kind of some highlights for me: Rival Sons, who are one of my favorite current rock bands on the planet. They were there. They did one of their songs, Do Your Worst, as well as a Black Sabbath song called Electric Funeral. I love Rival Sons, so was really, really cool to see them there. Alice in Chains was there as well. And I really feel like out of all these bands that are on this, that were on this bill, like Alice in Chains, in terms of their sound, owes the most to Black Sabbath with their drony guitar riffs, the downtuned guitars, those really heavy, chuggy, drony guitars. I feel like they owe a lot to Black Sabbath, to Tony Iommi and his guitar sound. So it made sense that Alice in Chains would be there for this concert. So they played a lot of their songs. They played Man in the Box, they played Wood, and then they played a Black Sabbath song called Fairies Wear Boots. So it's really cool. You know, every band that was on this bill played a couple of their own songs. They paid tribute to Ozzy and Black Sabbath. So it was nice to see there was a nice mix of musicians and songs in there. So actually, Supergroup B, there was a couple of different supergroups that were assembled for this show, but specifically Supergroup B, as I've seen them referenced to on a lot of these set lists. That was a pretty heavy lineup. You had Tom Morello in there from Rage Against the Machine leading a lot of that stuff. They had Billy Corgan on stage there to sing Breaking the Law, which is the Judas Priest song. Sammy Hagar came on and played one of my favorite Ozzy Osbourne solo songs, Flying High Again, which was one of my like favorite Ozzy songs to spin when I was on FM radio. Papa V Perpetua of Ghost came on to sing Bark at the Moon, another really great Ozzy solo track. And then who would have thought Steven Tyler of Aerosmith was there for the proceedings on Saturday. And there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years of the vocal injuries that Steven Tyler sustained, and how Aerosmith wasn't able to go on the road anymore because of it. But Steven Tyler evidently is, you know, some rest and some rejuvenation has brought him back to the stage, and he sounded absolutely fantastic at this show. He sang some Aerosmith. He sang Walk This Way. He sang Train Kept a Rollin', which is a great Aerosmith cover as well. And then he sang Whole Lot of Love. So they had a little bit of Led Zeppelin in there, and he sounded fantastic. So for a lot of us who are hardcore, like old school Aerosmith fans like myself, it was really great to see Steven Tyler up there doing his thing. Tool was there, which I thought, again, like kind of like Alice in Chains, I feel like Tool is one of those bands that really is indebted to Black Sabbath with their sound. So Tool did 46 and 2, as well as Enema, which are their tunes. And then they did Hand of Doom, which is a Black Sabbath song. Guns N' Roses was there. They sang Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. They sang one of their own tunes, Welcome to the Jungle. And then they sang some other songs as well. And then Metallica was the band that went on stage right before Ozzy and right before Black Sabbath. They played like a 6-song set, which was a mix of Metallica and a mix of Black Sabbath. They played Hole in the Sky, which is a Sabbath tune. They played For Whom the Bell Tolls, Master of Puppets. And, James Hetfield was on stage saying, like, without Black Sabbath, there would be no Metallica. And we really, like I said, those big 4 bands, Sabbath, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and Deep Purple, they really like set the tone for a lot of those bands in the 90s that we really love. You know, we love these heavy bands from the 90s and the 80s, whether it be Metallica or Tool or Alice in Chains, but really they are indebted to Black Sabbath for a lot of their sound and a lot of their influence. And then after that, Ozzy Osbourne went on stage. I know he's been experiencing a lot of health issues over the last couple of years, but he sounded fantastic. Ozzy sounded absolutely great. He came out and he sang I Don't Know. He sang Mr. Crowley, Mama, I'm Coming Home, and Crazy Train. So that must have been amazing for the fans in attendance at Villa Park in Birmingham. Before the big guns came on, Black Sabbath reunited all 4 original members with War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid. So you get 4 of the best Black Sabbath tracks to close out the show. And I can only imagine what it was like for fans who were there and even fans who were watching online, what it was like to see all of this happen, because really, like, it's such a day-long thing of tribute to Ozzy Osbourne, tribute to Black Sabbath, all these bands and artists that there are kind of their contemporaries, and then bands that were influenced by them. And that was just really, really cool to see. And I think this is probably the end of the line for Black Sabbath. Like, I think that this is probably it, but I could be wrong. They could do it again, but I feel like this really is the last kick at the can for Black Sabbath. But what a way to go. The Back to the Beginning festival, it was more of a festival than a concert. It was a day-long thing for all those fans in their hometown of Birmingham, England, with all of those bands that were so influenced by Black Sabbath. And like I said, those big bands from the 60s and 70s, they influenced the bands from the 90s, which then influences everybody after that. So really the legacy of Black Sabbath is well intact, and this looks like an awesome way to send them off. But let me know in the comments below, were you at the show? Did you watch the online stream? What were your favorite performances from the Back to the Beginning concert in Birmingham, England to send off Black Sabbath? Was it Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Tool? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But let's continue with the next topic on this edition of the Rock News Roundup podcast, and that is while Black Sabbath was ending things in Birmingham on Saturday night, Oasis came back and launched the reunion tour, the Oasis Live 25 reunion tour, their first concert in 16 years, which they did at Principality Stadium in Cardiff for 2 nights on Friday, July 4th and Saturday, July 5th. I did a reaction watch and a kind of like a debrief of the entire thing as a live stream here on the channel last week. So that's up on the channel if you want to go seek that out. But I'm going to link up here to Consequence of Sound and what they're talking about. Oasis launch reunion tour with their first concert in 16 years. It was pretty amazing to see. Again, I was not there. I'm here in Canada, so I was not in Cardiff. I got my tickets for Toronto on August the 24th. But yeah, some fans in Cardiff were witness to the first show of the Oasis Live 25 reunion tour. And Oasis, like Liam and Noel Gallagher, came on stage with their hands together. They came on stage hand in hand. It was amazing to see that the brothers are back together. They were joined by the rest of the reunited lineup, which includes, of course, Bonehead on guitar, includes Gem Archer on guitar, Andy Bell on bass, and then a new drummer for the band, Joey Warnker, who was the new drummer for Oasis for this reunion tour. And so, according to Consequence of Sound, this is what they said: the impossible has happened. Britpop legends Oasis played their first show together in 16 years, kicking off the reunion tour at Principality Stadium in Cardiff, UK on Friday, July the 4th. The band took the stage at exactly 8:15 local time and delivered a 2-hour set heavy on classics from their iconic first 2 records, Definitely Maybe and What's the Story, Morning Glory. They paid tribute to Liverpool footballer Diogo Jota, who was killed earlier this week at the age of 28. And then they also played a couple of songs from Be Here Now, and only one song from after Be Here Now. They played Little by Little from Heathen Chemistry. And they also included some extra musicians up there on stage with them as well. And then saying the last time that Oasis performed prior to tonight was back in 2009 when Noel left that show in Paris and the band broke up. But yeah, like there's been lots of reactions online. There's been lots of videos of the show. And then, taking a look at the set list, and we did a little bit of a talk about this in the on the live stream last week, but just take a look at this set list. Like, again, I know for Oasis fans, we're always going to be like, oh, I wish this was on the set list. I wish that was on the set list. But if you are an Oasis fan of varying degrees, whether you're a casual fan, an old school fan, hardcore fan, new fan, this set list really was amazing for their reunion tour. They opened up with Hello, It's Good to Be Back. So that's a great way to open up the show. Acquiesce, which was, you want to hear Noel and Liam sing that song together. Liam on the verse, Noel on the chorus. That's the big reunion song that we wanted to hear. Morning Glory, some might say. Bring It On Down, Cigarettes and Alcohol. So already just an incredible set list. Fade Away, Supersonic, Roll With It, Bring It On Down, which I thought was a great choice. Talk Tonight, Half the World Away, and Little by Little, and Noel Gallagher's little acoustic set, which was nice to see again. Do you know what I mean? And Stand By Me. I'm glad that Be Here Now did not get completely ignored on this set list. And then, like, look at the rest of this: Cast No Shadow, Slide Away, Whatever, Live Forever, Rock and Roll Star. And then the encore. This is like a pretty solid encore. If you're an Oasis fan and you're standing in the crowd of the reunion show to hear The Master Plan, Don't Look Back in Anger, Wonderwall, and Champagne Supernova as the encore, I don't think it gets any better than that. So, like, and I, again, us Oasis fans, we're always going to complain and say this song should be missing. It would have been nice to hear a couple of the songs from after Be Here Now, like something from, Fucking in the Bushes was the opening like track that played over the speakers, but there was nothing from Standing on the Shoulder of Giants. On Little by Little, we only got one track from Heathen Chemistry, but it would have been nice to hear. I said in my live stream, it would have really been nice to hear some of the first tracks from Heathen Chemistry, Don't Believe the Truth, and Dig Out Your Soul. So it would have been cool to hear the Hindu Times, like the first singles. The Hindu Times, it would have been cool to hear Lila, and it would have been cool to hear The Shock of the Lightning. But otherwise, you know what? There's nothing really we can really complain about with this set list. I think a lot of fans you would be leaving happy with this set list. And then this is not the end. This is just the beginning of the Oasis reunion tour. They just finished these 2 dates at the Principality Stadium in Cardiff, UK. They're getting all warmed up. They're going to be in just a couple of days be doing a 5-night run at Heaton Park in Manchester. That's going to start on July the 11th, going up to July the 20th. Then it's going to be huge. And I was saying on the live stream, like every leg of this tour is going to be exciting. Every time they hit a new place that they haven't been to yet, it's going to be exciting. Of course, Cardiff, UK, those were the first reunion shows. Very, very cool. But when the band returns to Manchester at Heaton Park, those are going to be mental as well. Those are going to be hardcore hometown shows. So those are going to be cool. When the band hits London for Wembley Stadium for 5 shows starting on July the 25th, that's going to be crazy as well. And then they're going to be going to Edinburgh on August the 8th, Dublin, Ireland on August the 16th for 2 shows. And then they're crossing the pond over here to North America. They're going to be playing Toronto at Rogers Stadium on the 24th and the 25th. I got my tickets for the 24th. Can absolutely not wait. It's going to be amazing. And then Chicago, East Rutherford, New Jersey, Los Angeles, Mexico City, back to London for a couple of shows, and then they're going to be going to Australia as well as South America. So every part of this tour, every leg, every new place that they hit, fans are going to be going crazy. Everybody's going to be going absolutely wild for Oasis, as it should be, because it just feels good to have Oasis back. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you know what I mean? Yeah, it just feels good to have Oasis back and to have the Gallagher brothers, like to see them hand in hand walking on stage together. That's something that a lot of us fans thought we would never see. So that is just so cool that they're back. The world is a better place when Oasis is back together and doing their thing. And don't get me wrong, I loved the solo years. I loved every minute of the Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds era and the Liam Gallagher era, the solo era, and I'm sure those will come back eventually. But yeah, it was just so good to have Oasis back. And like that's the thing about this channel. Like, I talk a lot about Oasis, and they're my favorite band of all time. And it's just fun to be able to talk with the community. So if you missed out on that live stream that I did, it's up right now on the YouTube channel, so you don't miss it. And yeah, Oasis back together. So let me know in the comments below. Did you go to Cardiff? Did you see the first 2 shows? Are you going to any of the other shows on the reunion tour? What do you think of the set list? We've already talked a lot about it, but Oasis is back, so we got to keep talking about it because it's super exciting. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And let's get to the last topic on this edition of the Rock News Roundup podcast, and that is the Smashing Pumpkins might be pricing out some of their longtime fans with the newly announced deluxe edition of their MACHINA era of albums. Like, okay, I want to show you guys something. Okay, this is my self-burned, self-made copy of MACHINA 2, The Friends and Enemies of Modern Music. Of course, I have my official copy of MACHINA here, but this is my self-burned copy of MACHINA 2. As you might remember, back in the year 2000, Smashing Pumpkins, after the first MACHINA album was a little bit of a flop, was not a huge success. The band was breaking up. They released a album called MACHINA 2, The Friends and Enemies of Modern Music, except it wasn't officially released. It was only released, I think, they made 25 box set vinyl copies, handed them out to people close to the band, and gave them permission to release it online, to release MP3 versions of all the songs online and distribute it for free. So fans like myself at the time in the year 2000 burned our own copies of MACHINA 2. This is like literally, it's a Maxell burned copy because you couldn't get the actual official version of this album. Like, there's the track listing that I printed on my home printer at home, on my computer. So they never released this official version of Smashing Pumpkins' MACHINA 2, The Friends and Enemies of Modern Music. So ever since, for the last 25 years, fans have been clamoring for the Smashing Pumpkins to release finally all the songs, everything, the complete ultimate edition of MACHINA, and the band has done just that. They just announced the details for the MACHINA Aranea Alba Editio. I don't know why Billy Corgan always has to make these deluxe editions very hard for us to pronounce. But let me just share my screen here with you, because they just announced this new deluxe edition, except this thing is expensive as hell. And I might actually just have to stick with my own home burned copy, because take a look at this. So the band is releasing a new reissue of the original Machina album. You can get that on 2 LP for $62. You can get the CD for $22. It's got a new remastered edition. But check out these deluxe editions. Check out the prices of these deluxe editions of this new Machina Aranea Alba Editio edition, this box set. There's a black vinyl edition available for $474. There's another edition, a deluxe box, that is $576. And then there's an autographed edition that is almost $800. Keep in mind, there's also shipping involved here, where this might be even more money. But it's okay. Let's take a look at this new deluxe edition. Like, don't get me wrong, this looks absolutely fantastic as a package. If you're a Smashing Pumpkins fan, this thing is amazing. By the way, only a vinyl version being released. We don't know if there's going to be a CD version. We don't know if this is going to get released on streaming. I'm hoping that it will, but otherwise, this might be the only way for us to hear this complete edition of this record. And it includes like multiple songs, so pretty much everything from the Machina sessions, everything from Machina, the Machines of God, everything from Machina 2, the Friends and Enemies of Modern Music. So all on these different sides. There's like over 30 tracks, as well as bonus tracks and everything there. Most of this we've heard before in really, really crappy editions on our home burned editions of Smashing Pumpkins Machina 2. But this actually includes some songs that I'm actually not familiar with. There's one called God's Promise. There's a couple other ones on here. There's a couple other ones on here that I've never really heard of. Machina, One Moment. I've never heard that. I don't think I've heard some of these other songs. It's got Dross on there, so that's amazing. That's one of my favorite tracks, really hard rocking track from the Machina 2 sessions. It's got Lucky 13. Without You. I've never heard those before, but overall, these are all available on other things. Like, let me show you guys my Smashing Pumpkins collection that I have on my iTunes here. Let me see here. So yeah, this is my iTunes library. I have 438 Smashing Pumpkins songs in my Smashing Pumpkins discography playlist here. So I got pretty much every album. And then when you go down to Machina 2, the Friends and Enemies of Modern Music, these are versions that were literally ripped from this CD. So like, talk about lossless, or like loss on the audio quality. Talk about just like, we've never had these songs in high enough quality. But here's pretty much all the songs that I have from those sessions. So pretty much everything here is has been heard before, whether that's been on Machina, the acoustic demos, the actual Machina Friends and Enemies album, Machines of God, Stand Inside Your Love, Try, and Judas O, which was part of their greatest hits package back in 2001. So we've heard a lot of this, but we haven't heard these high quality versions. And I'm actually kind of worried about that, because, you know, I want to hear this album incomplete. And if they don't put this on streaming, if they released a CD version of it, I would buy that for sure, because I would want to have that in my collection. It probably wouldn't be as much as the vinyl, would probably be a little bit more affordable. But then, you know, if they're not going to be releasing this on streaming, it's going to be very difficult for me to be able to hear a lot of these songs. And I feel like Smashing Pumpkins are really pricing out a lot of their fans. Like, of course, there's fans out there who want these really awesome, well-made, heavy-duty vinyl box sets for their collections. But then there's those poor fans like us who can't afford to spend $800 on an autographed vinyl version of the record. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of great songs during the Machina project, but this isn't Melancholy we're talking about. This isn't Siamese Dream. There are a lot of weak tracks during the Machina sessions and during those eras. So, you know what, this isn't necessarily worth the money. I don't think that people are going to be playing. And again, there's people out there, there's fans out there with some more disposable income than I have that would be able to pick this up. But to me, this is pricing out myself. This is pricing out a lot of other fans from listening to these Machina tracks. My only hope is that there's a retail ready version being released on CD, or a Spotify edition of this. I'm really hoping, because I want to be able to review the album here on the channel. I want to be able to talk about some of these unreleased tracks that we've never heard before. But right now, Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corgan are pricing out your boy Chino from picking up this edition of Machina. So it looks like I'm stuck with my original CD version of Machines of God, and I'm still still stuck with my burned copy, my self-burned copy of Machina 2 that came out in the year 2000. It's on a mix. It's two CDs. It's on a Mixel CD. I printed all this stuff out on my home printer. I deserve a better version, an official version of Machina 2 to put in my collection. So this is very cool in terms of the set. Don't get me wrong. The set itself looks amazing, very complete, very excited to potentially hear a lot of the music on this set, but really the price is so off-putting, and the fact that Billy Corgan is just like milking the fans as much as he can for this edition of the album, it's a little disappointing. So we'll be able to see hopefully soon if we'll be able to hear some of the extra tracks that we haven't heard off Machina 2, but until then, still holding on to my self-burned copy of Machina 2, The Friends and Enemies of Modern Music. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Are you going to be picking up this version of Machina, this complete, what's it called? The Altania Alba DTO edition, whatever the fuck it's called. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Are you going to be picking up this new edition of the Smashing Pumpkins Machina? Let me know in the comments. But before we wrap up this edition of the Rock News Roundup podcast, I want to get to my tracks of the week. Every week here on the podcast, talk about 3 or 4 different tracks that I'm listening to right now that I want to recommend to you, the listener. So my tracks of the week for this week include some really new, fresh stuff. I want to talk about Foo Fighters and their new song called Today's Song. It's hard to believe, but Foo Fighters are celebrating 30 years of being a band. It's actually been 30 years this past weekend of the release of the debut Foo Fighters album that came out in 1995, which Dave Grohl played all the instruments on. It's like the start of the Foo Fighters, songs like This Is a Call and Big Me, Alone and Easy Target, Floaty, Weenie Bee, Good Grief, For All the Cows, an amazing album. But the Foo Fighters celebrated their 30th anniversary by releasing a brand new song called Today's Song, and I think it's a pretty solid track. I don't think it's maybe the best Foo Fighters song, and maybe not as strong as some of the tracks that we got on their most recent studio album, But Here We Are, which came out back in 2023. But it's a cool song. It starts kind of soft with Dave Grohl singing his thing, and then it picks up real good and ends up rocking quite a bit by the end, featuring Dave Grohl on drums. Same as we were talking about with Matt Cameron earlier on. We still don't know who's going to be taking over the drum kit for Foo Fighters when it comes to live shows. They have some live shows booked in Asia for the fall, so I'm sure we're going to be hearing who's taking over for the live side of the drums for Foo Fighters. But for this particular song, Dave Grohl plays the drums, and I really think it kind of feels like with Foo Fighters, like there was only 2 drummers who could ever play on a Foo Fighters track, and that would be Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins, rest in peace. So I'm a big Foo Fighters fan. So today's song is one of my picks for my tracks of the week. And then my second track of the week is courtesy of California rockers Wavves. They just released their new album called Spun, and my pick for the week is the title track from Spun. Wavves have been one of my favorite California stoner rock bands for a long time. They're actually celebrating an anniversary as well. 15 years of their album King of the Beach, which came out in 2010, which is the album that got me into Wavves. So this is their new record. It's their 9th studio record. Wavves is led by singer and songwriter Nathan Williams, who really is he's a great songwriter, he's a great musician, and this has some amazing hooks on this record. It's just what you expect from Wavves. The music is propulsive, it rocks, it's got like a punk rock feel to it, a California rock to it, feel to it, like a beach rock vibe to it. And this song and this album has some of their biggest hooks that they've had in their career. So really cool record. And when it comes to cool bands or like bands doing cool things, I feel like Wavves has done a lot of really cool things. The band has their own radio station in Grand Theft Auto 5, which if you've ever listened to that's in there as well. Vinewood Boulevard Radio, which is always my favorite radio station to listen to when I'm playing GTA 5. They're indie entrepreneurs, and they have their own weed brand. Wavves has always been associated with weed and smoking weed, but they have their own weed brand. I don't think it's available in Canada. I've never tried it myself, but it's available California and other parts of the world. So in addition to being amazing musicians and releasing kick-ass music, they're also indie entrepreneurs. So Wavves and Spun is one of my tracks of the week, so I highly recommend that. And then finally, my final track of the week is courtesy of Bilmuri, not the actor. I'm talking about the musician of the band Bilmuri, Bilmuri, and their new song called More Than Hate. This is Johnny Frank's band. I've been getting really hard into Bilmuri's discography. I'd actually never really listened to Bilmuri. Was not really super familiar with his music or anything like that until they popped up on my Spotify. Really started getting into their most recent album, American Motorsports. And I love with Bilmuri, I love love just the mix of pop and country and metal, some killer melodies in there. I don't really think it's for everybody. I don't really think everybody enjoys the mashing of those genres, but I think that Bilmuri does it really well. But with this song, with More Than Hate, it's more of a traditional, just kind of straight ahead metal song. Obviously, Johnny Frank's vocals are very melodic, but there's some good screams in there, some good grunts, and some really nice down-tuned riffs in here as well. So super heavy stuff. I feel like Bilmuri is already becoming one of my favorite bands of the year. I love discovering new music, and I was really glad to discover Bilmuri. So I recommend the latest album, American Motorsports, with songs like Empty Handed and Better Hell and Bout a Cashew and The End. It's a great, really great record. But he just released a brand new single called More Than Hate, and that is my last recommendation for my tracks of the week. All right, guys, that is it. That is going to wrap up this edition of the Rock News Roundup Podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Very much appreciate it. Make sure to hop in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube to let me know your thoughts on any of the topics that I talked about on this edition of the podcast, whether that's the Pumpkins and MACHINA 2, the return of Oasis, the saying goodbye to Black Sabbath, or Matt Cameron leaving Pearl Jam. Let me know your thoughts about our comments or the comments in the comments below. You know what I mean. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, share, and make sure to rate and review if you're listening to the audio-only version of this podcast, and make sure to follow me on social media as well, at MACHINA Music across platforms. But I'll see you guys again next week for another edition of the Rock News Roundup Podcast. Until then, rock on, everybody.